Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Maducha, Dr. Speed Selling, and this is Raging Verbalist number 7070. Whoever thought we were going to get this far? Raging Verbalist, for those you don't know, is all about all kinds of things that may pop into my head, and I am aided and abetted and helped with the ever lovely Sandra. Sandra, how you doing?
I am good. How are you?
Well, I mean, how much better could it be? We're doing another Raging Verbalist, and for those you don't understand, but before we get to the not understanding, let's get some business taken care of. First and foremost is make sure that you go and hit that like button. Second is if you want to leave a comment, leave a nice and pleasant comment. Understand that Sandra will be reading them. And third, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Also, go to our Facebook page, Position to Win Book, Position to Win Book, and you can always catch it there. Okay. So here's how it works. Sandra has a series of questions that we have carefully crafted. So she is in your seat asking these questions of me, and we cover all kinds of different topics. So today is one of those holidays, which I think is very underutilized, and it's one of my favorites. So, Sandra, what are we talking about today?
All right. When did April Fools start?
For those of you who do not understand April Fools, I am going to enlighten you. I'm going to give you that excitement so you can have this. I've always loved April Fools, and it's been one of those things where as soon as I heard about it, I said, wow, this is my kind of gig. So our crack research team and these digits went out and found out some very important things that will elucidate and excite you to the very core. So April Fools celebrates April 1st every day. So that's April 1. And it's been celebrated for several centuries in all kinds of different cultures. And in fact, no one knows its exact origin. So it is that one of those mysteries that came up of the primordial ooze, and now what it is, of course, is that it is a means of you do a practical joke or a prank or a hoax, and you tell everybody and announce that it in fact is one of those things by yelling or shouting April Fools, and see that way you can get away with doing whatever you're going to do. Now, here's what we do know is that it goes back to 1852. Actually, not 1852. The dyslexic in me just read it that way. That's a mistake. 1582. That's a few centuries before. And this is when the French, you know, inventors of the best use of potatoes, French fries. Hey, I know if you're in France, you're pissed now, but I'm just April Fools. So what they did was they changed calendars. So many of you may not have known this, but there was a calendar shift in the 1500s from the Julian calendar. Wasn't he John Lennon's son was Julian? I don't know. Maybe it wasn't around those days. Anyway, so it was the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, and when they switched it, that happened, by the way, in the Council of Trent in 1563. There will be a test later, just so you know. And what they did was they flipped it, and the new year was going to begin on the spring equinox. And they said, hey, what about April 1st? We'll just call it that way. By the way, that is not the spring equinox for those of you who want to figure this stuff out. Now, unfortunately, people who were slow to get the news or failed to recognize that the start of the new year had actually been moved to January 1st. Now, hey, it was old times. There were some pretty people. There were people who just weren't quite sure what was going on, and what would happen is they would continue to celebrate the last week of March through April 1st, and they became the butt of jokes and hoaxes. By the way, in today's world, that would be like calendar shaming. I'm going to calendar shame you for not knowing. Boo hoo. Yeah. By the way, I find all this puritanical bullshit. But that's what we do. And these pranks included having, a paper fish placed on their backs and being referred to as an April fish. I guess you had to be there. Some jokes don't carry on into the future. And it was said to symbolize a young, easily caught fish and a gullible person. Days before we had a lot of, internet videos and all that stuff. So that's its origin. And for all of you who now say, your life, this was the last piece of knowledge you needed to complete your life, you have now received it. So, Sandra, what is our next important earth shattering question?
What are some good April Fool's things to do?
Depends how you want to pull pranks on people, or if you do. I have always done some of these with my customers over the years. I used to send out some faxes. I know that's dating me. What's that thing? But I used to send out April Fool stuff to very staid corporations, and I would say a 1 day only sale, and it would be a 77% off sale, which of course is insane. And I would point out that they would have to issue the order that day, and they would have to accept a 1,000-day delivery schedule. And I mean, I used to do quacky things. By the way, companies I work for would just go batshit crazy, which was even better because that's what made it work really well. If you don't want to necessarily mess around with people like that, is pick a weirdo factoid out there, and kind of work off of it. So growing up in Colorado and going to the mountains, one of the pranks that were hoaxes that we would pick up on, like young Boy Scouts, would be to send them to other campsites and ask for if we could borrow, because it would be a little windy. We'd say, Pat, go down to the next campsite and ask if they have a left-handed wind changer, because that's where the wind is coming from. And of course, when you have somebody young and gullible, today we would call them internet, speculators in the stock market would probably fit the same category. Anyway, he would walk down the next campsite and would say, I need to borrow your left-handed wind changer, with all sincerity. Sometimes they would have to write it down. And of course, if they ran into somebody who understood what we were doing to these individuals, is they'd say, well, I'd love to lend it to you, son, but I only brought the right-handed wind changer. So you have to go back and tell him that. And this one case, we had this guy go back and forth like about 5 times because the other side kept playing the game on the thing. So that's always a fun thing to do. Now, if you're going to say, John, that's a cruel, terrible thing, no, it's not that cruel. I mean, pushing them off the edge of a mountain, that could be in there. But doing that, that's like a fun thing to do. So now, what is our next brilliant, elucidated, articulated question?
All right. What are some April Fool's things that you should never do?
Well, I think one of them would be to send somebody like, and this one somebody actually did that I know, is they called their mother and said, Mom, I got bad news. Dad has secretly has just gotten the test results, and he's got, and I still can't believe the guy did it, but he told his mother that his father had been secretly diagnosed with cancer. That did not turn out to be a good April Fool's prank or hoax. That was like bad. Don't ever do something like that. So I leave the health stuff out of there. Had a friend of mine whose longtime girlfriend, they lived together. She had one of those little sticks, those little sticks, and she basically had genned it to where it showed that she was, how we say, with child, and showed it to him, and he was blown away. He was like, how did it happen? I mean, we all know how it happens by now, hopefully, and all of that. But you know what happened, of course, is that she waited like 4 hours. I mean, he was like going crazy, gonna call people. He was so excited. And then she had put a little card that he discovered and found, and it said April Fools. I can tell you they didn't last long later on. I mean, that was one of those I would say don't do that. So, Sandra, do you have any other tips? Because obviously, you have seen people do some silly things, but are there other tips of things that you would suggest people not do?
Yeah. Like you said, health topics, life or death topics, like leave that out of it. Keep it maybe on the lighter side for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah, yeah. Now, one of the coolest ones. I mean, because I don't know exactly where we'd slot this in. One of the coolest ones is that there was this high tech company, and by so April Fool's Day, April 1 is the sanctioned day to do these. But if you have a culture where you do some of these things, it's you don't have a stick up your what, so you can like have fun. Is that there was a guy who, you know, and you could probably Google and find this, but what his employees did, he was one of the founders of a big software company. And what happened is that he went on a trip, and his partner, uh, they went and got this guy's Ferrari, and they took out, because they were on the lower level when these 1-story kind of buildings, and they took out part of the wall, and they cleaned out his office, and they put the Ferrari in his office, and then they sealed it up, and nobody told him anything. And the guy comes back from this trip to go to his office, because of course he had his office locked up, and his assistant was there, and everybody was in on it. And and people just started gathering. He's wondering, hey, well, it's great to see you, all the separation anxiety, and open the door. And he thought his car was getting fixed, because they had made up this little story that it had been bumped in the garage, and they took it over, and then on. And in his office, what used to be his office, was his Ferrari. So I always thought that was like a great, great joke. And the guy took it the right way. But, it's just like, that would be like an awesome. I would love to do that one. That would be cool. You know. So, all right. What is our next one? What's the next one that you have on the topic of the tip of your tongue?
All right. So when should you let them off the hook and tell them that it's an April Fool's joke?
See, I think you let them off the hook when you get to that maximum, wow, I can't believe it. Tension's building. This has got to be, there's something's got to be not right about it, or they're getting, major stress out. Is that then you just got to let the air out of the balloon, because I always think of it this way: go get yourself one of those, those little kitty balloons, and fill it up, and then when you let go of it, it goes, it makes that kind of weird sound, farting sound. So that's kind of like what you want to do, is you want to release it. So it kind of gives you that whole sense of it. And my suggestion is that, unlike the woman who didn't tell the guy for several hours that she wasn't really pregnant. And of course, he still was, he was still, when he was telling us the story, all these guys, he's like, how would she get the thing to turn the right color? And how would you? And I'm like, yeah, let it go. Let it go. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a website, pregnantwomenurine.com. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to know. Okay. I don't want to know. So I think that you got to let people off, and you can't have them hanging too much, especially if it's like putting them into a lot of stress and distress. Uh, I've had, and I will tell this story, is I was at an event that I was going to speak at, and I had my briefcase sitting next to me. And I run into another speaker, and he and I are talking, we're having a good time, and he's just checking in. And all of a sudden I turn around, and my briefcase is gone. And he thought it would be really funny to have the bellman just pick it up quietly, put it onto the little luggage cart, and wheel it up to his room. And I had security involved. We were going to look at the video, see who took it. And up walks Ted saying, "Oh, I think we took this by mistake." Now, that was like a total bullshit story. Now, after the fact, I thought it was pretty funny. But for about 35 minutes, it was total terror, because I thought somebody stole my briefcase. That wasn't a funny story, in my opinion. But that's like, yeah. But you got to he let it go a little too long. Doesn't mean I don't continue to talk to him, but it was like crazy. Now, here is something that this is not an April Fool's joke by any stretch of the imagination. This is not a hoax. This is, in fact, what you should really be seriously thinking about on April Fool's, or any time actually, And that is what you ought to think about is going out and getting yourself a book or two. So go out and get, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it, position to win. And we've just, that we just, hey, we just hit an anniversary. Go get it, go learn it. It's definitely applicable. Also, if you've not read Remote Work for a Better World, it's only 99 cents on Amazon. Go check that out. By the way, that needs an update. I will admit it, but you know what? There's a lot of stuff in it. We were looking at it, and there's a lot of things that still no one is talking about and how to do remote work. And my suggestion is that you run, don't walk. Let your fingers do the walk. You get the fastest, highest speed internet speed to go and get that and snag that. Also, you can go to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com, and you can go check it out there and get an autographed copy. Also, if you want to say, John, do an April Fool's thing in it, I will do that too. So keep that in mind because that is something you could do. And what a way to spend April 1st or any day, but getting some great insight and great ideas about what to do. All right. So, Sandra, where do we go from here?
All right. What are some of the quirkiest April Fool's pranks and hoaxes?
Well, I became aware of this in kind of an odd way, but the people at BMW, the staid Germans, the people from Munich, started doing these April Fools ads, and they were just amazing ads because they were designed to teeter on the verge of credibility, and they offered some fantastical technology. And the first one that I ever saw goes back to 1983, in which BMW revealed that one of its engineers, Herr Bolin, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, had developed a sunroof that could be kept open even in the rain because it had these jets of air that would blast away any water. So it didn't even matter if it was raining. And since the system worked completely automatically, I mean, it was just ready to go, that you could actually use it even in a car wash. And on top of which, the ad pointed out that if you were really interested in it, that if you wanted to seek more information, you could go and send a query to Miss April Verst in the marketing department. And they did it. They did a full up ad. They did a great job. And to me, that was just absolutely funny. Now, the interesting backstory is that there really was a guy named Hans with the last name, and he was the head of the aerodynamic in Munich. And, he almost took it like seriously. It's like, hey, no, it's a hoax. So that was one of those. And I mean, I'm still waiting to get one of those things. I mean, that would be great. Never have to worry about that. And then a couple other ones that they did, which I always thought were really funny. So in 1986, they had the movable steering wheel. For those of you who don't know, they drive on the other side of the road in Britain, in the UK, and they had done this incredible thing, which is they had two steering columns, but they hid one. So when you went from Britain to France, you could literally undo it, and they had a great step-by-step 4 stages to moving the steering wheel from one side to the other, flipping everything around, revealing this other instrument panel, and literally you could drive on either side of the road. So you didn't even have to learn how to do that. So I think that was a really cool example of what that was. And you talk about a company that, and they're pretty staid. Like I said, these are people who are out there, right? I mean, the Germans are not known for being a laugh riot. I mean, I've got some German in me, I can tell you, not a lot of laugh riot. So those two right there. But actually, there's some historical pranks which I think are very, very cool that I will share. One of which is the fact that they went out and did this spaghetti harvest, and this again was done by the Swiss. And the Swiss region near the Italian border reported on April 1st, 1957, that they told the British audience that they had an exceptionally heavy spaghetti crop that year, and the camera cut to footage of people picking spaghetti off of trees and bushes, and then later on sitting down to some homegrown spaghetti. Now, at this time, spaghetti really wasn't necessarily a dish that the British, would have known a lot about. And now it doesn't mean that they didn't recognize it as a prank, but there we go. People were doing that in 57. So my favorite version of that story, and one that I like to do, is that my favorite one was talking to people who are from Idaho, and I was in Idaho, and I kept looking at them with this quizzical look, and I kept saying, I haven't seen the orchards. And people say, an orchard, what do you mean? I said, well, where are all the potato orchards? Where are the potato trees? And they're like, what are you talking about? Potatoes don't grow on trees. I said, oh, absolutely, they grow on trees. Of course they do. And if you say it convincingly enough, people start to believe you. And they looked at me and they said, no, 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 no. I said, you're telling me that you don't have potato trees? Wow. So that was one of my fun ones. And I'll leave with a final. I mean, the last one of these that I think was really cool is that in 1961, actually, no, I got a couple. 1961, some smarties from Caltech. By the way, Caltech is like a brainiac school, right? And what they did was there were two teams. They were the Washington Huskies and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I mean, who doesn't want to be a Golden Gopher? I mean, I guess what was there, like a silver, a bronze, an aluminum gopher? I don't know. Anyway, so what they did was they gave on the Husky side, the Washington cheerleaders gave to the Husky side a bunch of cards. And Sandra will understand what this is because, of course, she is a college football person, as we've discovered. She and her husband are fanatical about this. I mean, if you're stuck in Nebraska, I mean, if you're living in Nebraska, you're going to be into this thing. Anyway, what they said, listen, when halftime comes up, you hold up these signs and it's going to spell Huskies, right? So, hey, it's going to show that, it's going to be on TV and everybody's going to love it. Except that what happened is the Caltech people went in, snuck in. Now, other people would have snuck in to get access to the cheerleaders. They snuck in and elaborately developed an entire set of cards and instructions, which they then passed out. And when the stadium was given the signal, and all of these Washington Husky fans flipped over their cards for all to see, it spelled Cal Tech, not Washington Huskies. That is a good, I like that one. And the final one for today, because I mean, I know that we could keep going. The final one is that there was an erotic, for its time, erotic novel called Naked Came the Stranger. And of course, what happened is that this is 1969. And these people said, hey, there's all these really salacious, for those of you who may not know what 1969, that was the edge and the cusp of the sexual revolution. We didn't have it before that. It was, anyway, but there was this sexual revolution taking place. And so there were all these, hotter and hotter novels and all this other stuff. And what happened is that there was and this is long before, 50 Shades of Grey or anything like that. And of course, the author was Penelope Ash, and they had this. Oh, she looked like Penelope Ash, and they wrote this, and this thing started selling like crazy. And in fact, it made it to like number 4 on the New York Times bestseller list. And it wasn't until later on that somebody revealed that it was actually written by 25 journalists. And what they did was they expressed that this was actually a parody. It was a hoax. And then the next year, they actually published a book about the experience called Stranger Than Naked, or How to Write Dirty Books for Fun and Profit. But they literally wrote a book as a parody, which turned out to be, of course, a bestseller. Why wouldn't it? It's made up. So that's actually one of my absolute favorite ones because, yeah, wow. I mean, who couldn't figure out how to do that? Of course, I always wonder why we call it a parody in a way, because frankly, you know, it's fiction. I mean, you're making it up. If you've ever caught yourself saying, wait a second, I don't think some of the facts in this book are correct, and it's a fiction, please, please look at yourself in the mirror and ask what, maybe you've had like a couple of, maybe a bad burrito or something. I mean, it's fiction. People make stuff up all the time. All right. What's the next one?
All right. Have you had people do an April Fool's joke to you?
Well, before I do that, have you had anybody do an April Fool's joke on you?
I actually have not.
Now,
Boring that way.
now, I suspect there's one of two reasons. Number one is that they know that Sandra, having lived and raised on a farm, having dealt with livestock, knowing how to swing a shovel and all of that, probably out of just number one abject fear of getting clocked. I mean, she may look nice and sweet, but yeah, look out. Or they said, no, no, she wouldn't take it the right way. All right, well, and, I hope that somewhere in that big giant COVID relief package that there is a April Fool's parody enhancement, and that the government will send you an additional check or something to help make that up for you, because I mean it's too bad. Probably the one that I had was I was working for my best boss, and he, I don't know whatever possessed him to do this, but he literally sent me sent me this little message, because of course he left me a voicemail about this opportunity that was coming up, and I called up, and I was so excited, and I'm taking notes, and I'm oh yeah, I'm going to change my travel plans, going to do all this and do all that, and I hung up the phone, and he didn't do April Fools. What he did was he had his assistant call me up, and Michelle basically was telling me about how, well, we got, John, this is really important, and I'm going to help you out. I'm going to be there. And of course, I realized I was on speakerphone, and they said April Fools. So that was the best one for me. And I always liked it because they did it in fun, but they knew that I would take it so seriously. And that's one of the things, is that if people don't take it seriously, they're usually not going to take it as an April Fool's joke. They're going to probably take it the wrong way. But you got to, that's when you got a good one. It's when you do it really seriously and you get them hooked. You get them on the edge of their seat. Excellent. All right. I know. Last question before we wrap up. And if you have had fun with this, shameless, hey, go like, subscribe, bell, all of that stuff. Because we, love to have some comments about it. Okay. What is the last one?
All right. Should you do an April Fool's joke to gain attention for your business?
Well, I think it shows that BMW, they worked hard to come up with these. And by the way, they did a whole bunch of them over a series of time. But you have to be willing to put up with, especially today in this crazy world that we live in, where even the most minor slight is viewed as this, major tear in the universe or something. So I would say you've got to be careful about it, but you should have fun. I think having a little bit of fun with your customers and giving them a good laugh. The thing that you have to be careful at is you got to make sure that you really think through how somebody might take this the wrong way and what might happen if they take it the wrong way. So my suggestion is there's always room for doing another promotion, but maybe what you do is you let the air out of the balloon earlier, just so they know that it's kidding. It has to be clever. It has to be well thought out. It has to be well executed. And if you're not doing that, well, first off, that's what every promotion should be: clever, should be well executed, should be well thought out, should make sure that you capture the attention of those people that you believe are going to go and buy from you. And if you do all of that, it's probably worth doing. The real question is, are you working hard enough on your marketing and your advertising or promotion to actually be ready to do that? I wouldn't try to do it at the very last minute. I would try to do it ahead of time. And most importantly, is to make sure that you're not making fun of them. You're making fun of a situation, and that they can see that that's what it's all about. If you do that, then April Fool's Day will be, in fact, a fun day. If nothing else, call everybody that you have been meaning to call them on April 1st and say, did you have an April Fool's joke? Did something happen? I don't know. Share a story about, some of the kooky things that have been done over the years. Who knows? Maybe you can convince them that you're out harvesting spaghetti, or that you're bought into a potato orchard, or who knows what else it might be. And with that, I just want to thank you all for having hung in there this long. This has been the Raging Verbalist number 70. I am John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling, and of course, also saying goodbye for the lovely Sandra. So until next time, all I can say is, what will you do to fool somebody? So that way you can give a little bit of a smile and say, April Fools.